if you don't have that social proof, I know personally as a consumer, if I see a product that looks great and is priced maybe too good to be true and it only has 3 reviews, probably not buying it, because that's probably a product that just changed names and changed its listing because it was getting a ton of negative reviews. So community building, I think, is so important and something that I know we at HOPWTR want to continue to build upon, because I'll tell you, this non-alcoholic space is tapped into something that people love. Mountain biking is huge. Hiking is huge. All these sports where beer has played a role, but maybe you don't want to have a beer when you're about to go down a steep slope on a mountain bike.
Welcome to Contrary to Popular Opinion, a podcast hosted by HOPWTR Digital. In each episode, we bring you provocative topics and novel perspectives around leadership, business, and marketing that defy the norms because exponential growth demands unconventional thinking and visionary action. So open your mind and let's get into this week's episode.
Hey everyone, Kelly McGuire, co-founder of HOPWTR Digital. Excited to talk to today's guest.
Hey everybody, this is Todd, Kelly's co-founding partner, and blast from the past, we have an old teammate, an old coworker from the original agency that we all came together in many, many years ago, Stu Haack. I found him on LinkedIn because he just got a cool new job, and I thought, oh, what a great place to talk to Stu about his new gig. Just a couple of highlights about Stu. Wow, what a background. You started in copywriting. We talked about this when we last spoke. You were a copywriter, and now you are head of direct-to-consumer e-commerce for a CPG brand, and that's been your career journey ever since with Mars and with Hawaiian Host, and you've just spent a bunch of years, Caesars Entertainment and all this space. And so today, Kelly and I are going to sort of try to poke around and cause a stir a bit about trying to understand how marketers are supposed to influence consumer behavior to buy something like HOPWTR online when they can just as easily go buy it at the grocery store. And those are sort of two complementary yet adjacently opposing forces. We're going to see how you're planning to tackle that. And maybe some folks listening will gain some insights from your wealth of experience. Welcome, Stu.
Thank you. And what an introduction. I remember back in 2008 when I joined the original ad agency where you and Kelly were rocking it. I was a copywriter back then. Missed the days of copywriting. I got to come to work and write headlines and radio ads and all that kind of stuff. And now it's a lot more data and analysis, which is still fun, but maybe not as sexy.
Yeah, I don't know how you went from creative to data geek, but that's one transition I've rarely ever seen happen, but you've made it happen quite successfully.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun journey. And like you said, I kind of made a transition from creative then to marketing, and then somehow found my way into e-commerce. And I think it's been really good for me because I've had the opportunity to sort of see all the different worlds and hopefully combine them in the best possible way as I move forward, and not just live in the data and analytics, but also understand how creative impacts the brand and the experience for the user.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you have an informed opinion about the creative that is running.
Maybe too informed. Maybe too informed sometimes.
Yeah, if not at least the copy. All right, so here's where I want to start poking some holes and things and sort of trying to challenge some of the conversation out there. When we first talked, one of the things you said was, hey, my challenge is going to be, I'm going to get people interested in trying HOPWTR. And I've got to do that from an online e-commerce perspective. And oh, by the way, we have widespread mass grocery retail sort of distribution already. So I'm contending with that. I know that you had that same challenge at Hawaiian Host and probably at Mars. So maybe in an overarching generalized way, can you describe how you've tried to approach the idea of really blowing up D2C and consumer e-commerce purchases when you're competing with retail?
Yeah, it's the perennial question. And first, let me just say, cheers, gentlemen.
Yes.
And I appreciate you having me on the podcast. For those listening, I just cracked a double hopped HOPWTR, which is my favorite flavor. Tastes very similar to an IPA, but has 0 alcohol, 0 calories. That's my plug. That's the last one, I promise.
It's a good plug. And I will just add, what great timing, because boy, the non-alcoholic category right now is just blowing up. So I think you're in for a wild ride.
Well, like you said, I joined HOPWTR about 2 months ago, and it has been a phenomenal journey. The team is amazing. This company started in 2020. And it started in D2C, actually. And so it really, right in the middle of the pandemic, I mean, the founders actually got started, clearly had no idea that they were in for a pandemic. I think in some ways, obviously, it caused a lot more challenges, but also we know the pandemic, there was a lot of opportunities in direct to consumer. Consumers were sitting at home trying to find things to buy, things to do, things to occupy their time. And so HOPWTR really blasted off originally in D2C. And there's not a ton of brands that really get a firm start in D2C, more so these days, obviously. But so we kind of went D2C, then went into Amazon. And then we really started ramping up retail. And so retail now, I think we're in about 6,000 doors nationwide. Just got into Walmart. We're in Sprouts. We're in all kinds of different liquor stores and alcohol shops because, as you said, non-alcoholic is just blowing up. People are not necessarily looking to quit drinking. They're looking to supplement it and maybe reduce their total intake. So rather than cracking 6 beers on a Friday night, maybe it's 3, and then you throw in 3 hop waters or something like that. And so it is. But obviously, to your point and to your question, e-commerce was the big dog for HOPWTR, and now retail I think this will be the first year that retail actually drives more sales than our e-commerce side of the business, which to me is a great thing. And I know to your question, it's at odds with my goals. As the director of e-commerce for HOPWTR, I want to drive more revenue and more sales. But as we get more distribution across the country, we do see challenges in the markets where we now have more distribution. So now all of a sudden, maybe we're seeing a little bit lower of a conversion rate in those cities. Maybe we're seeing a little bit less traffic from those cities. Or the traffic that's coming to our website is going to the where to buy page rather than the checkout page on the website. To me, obviously, the instant gut reaction is, oh no, how am I going to hit my sales goals as we continue to get more retail distribution? But I think that as anyone who works in marketing or e-commerce or business in general, at the end of the day, what we're trying to accomplish is getting more cans in hands. We want more people to try HOPWTR. We want more people to experience the awesome flavors that we have, the awesome functional benefits with the ashwagandha and the L-theanine that do create a calm and a focus. So to me, it's not really critical of what method we get those cans in your hands. It's just getting those cans in hands. And so e-commerce is a method. E-commerce is one method to do it because we still we're not in every single Walmart. We're not in every single Kroger. And one day we will be. But for right now, we're not there yet. And so e-commerce is a great vehicle to get people to learn about the brand, to experience a little bit more about the brand. Obviously, we can do more storytelling on the website than we can in a grocery aisle. So this is a great opportunity for us to make people fall in love with the product. If they buy it from the website once, but then buy it from Sprouts for the next 16 times, perfectly fine with me, as long as they continue to love the brand.
So I really like that. You laid out the challenges and the balances between e-commerce and retail a lot there. It really makes me think about where your head goes in terms of when you're engaging in a digital environment for a physical product that, again, traditionally, a lot of these things will be what I would consider more impulse buy or recommendation buy, where it's like, okay, I'm going to the grocery store, I'm going to pick up my soft drink or my beer or whatever it is. It's part of a daily routine. And in an e-commerce environment, you have to be planning ahead and thinking ahead and already sold in and bought into. So I'd love to kind of hear the way that you tackle that challenge of, I think there's 2 parts. There's the brand new customer, which you have to have this idea of, obviously there's a compelling reason for you as a brand to say, I'm going to put an ad out there and I want you to pay attention and maybe go to a website and learn about it and watch videos and things. That's kind of a big ask of a consumer to take maybe a minute to 10 minutes to more of their time to learn about you when there's a million other people screaming at them to learn. And then there's the nurturing of customers to say, okay, I've gotten past the hurdle of you trying my product, you like my product, but rather than you saying, I'm thirsty for some HOPWTR and I want to get it in the next 10 minutes so I can be drinking it, I need to plan 1, 2, 3 days in advance to get my stockpile of it. It's a very different engagement. So curious as how you think about, again, the new customer engagement and why someone should spend time learning about you and trying you and going through what is not the most convenient process to do that. And then even the nurturing, even the ones that do like you, how do you get over that? Hey, plan ahead and think ahead versus just when you're thirsty, go buy us.
It's a great question. I mean, and that's the perennial challenge for us as marketers and e-commerce folks, because you're balancing that immediacy of like, I wish we were distributed everywhere where you could just grab a 6-pack whenever you needed one. Obviously, we're not there yet. We'll get there. But planning ahead, if you're going to have a party, maybe hop water is a great option to have for people who don't necessarily want to imbibe or something like that. So to me, at the end of the day, it's just like anything else. It's how do we get our brand locked into your mind as this is the only one that I want? Because we are seeing more competitors in the space. I mean, Todd, as you said, it's a hot segment. We're seeing some of the older brands in the beer industry are starting to create competitors modeled after what we've done. Now, they're not doing the same from a functional standpoint. It just kind of has that hoppy, sparkling water flavor. But to the consumer, it's not necessarily always a huge differentiating point. I look at brands like my team is so tired of hearing me say this, even my team at Hawaiian Host, but I just love talking about Dr. Squatch. Dr. Squatch is deodorant at the end of the day. Is it better or worse than Old Spice or, all those other guys? I don't know, maybe. I think it probably is maybe a little bit better. But those guys have done such a phenomenal job of building a brand that people really want and are willing to pay double for. I buy Dr. Squatch deodorant, it's $12. I could buy another standard off-the-shelf deodorant for $6, $5. But I buy Dr. Squatch because they've done a phenomenal job of building this brand. And to your point as well, they started in D2C. They were a $2 million business, maybe, 8 years ago or so. Now I think they're well over $200 million, and they're in all of the grocery outlets and all of the big chains that you would expect to see them in. So they're balancing this. And what they've done, I think, in the mind of the consumer is whether you know and you want to put Dr. Squatch deodorant on subscription on Amazon or on their website. So they're planning ahead, right? That's the planning ahead sort of part of it. Or whether you're walking down the aisle at your Kroger or your Walmart, you see that big wall of deodorants in front of you, and you're not willing to accept just any deodorant. You're like, I need that Dr. Squatch. I think from an advertising perspective, that's where we all need to get to is if you're going to try to be that premium brand and not a commodity, because a lot of the things that are made these days are just commodities, right? Like you could just get this produced just about anywhere. But obviously you make it a little bit better than everyone else. And then you got to build that brand so that people are specifically seeking you out, whether it's in the moment or whether it's planning in advance.
I like that. And I think you touched on something that is where I want to go in a couple of ways. So you mentioned, obviously, you're competing in a space with some giants. You have your InBevs, and you have this category with what I would imagine are much larger distribution networks and piggybacking of customer profiles and probably much larger marketing budgets to get out there. And then you have this idea of, for Dr. Squatch, for example, right? Yes, there is that marketing, that awareness component, but I think there's also that community factor that you've heard about, someone who's tried it and you have that validation. And so coming from the creative background that you have, how do you approach that challenge of not just putting media in market to get awareness so that there's eyeballs on and you have that few seconds of attention, but delivering a message that gives them a reason to believe and to say, okay, I've heard of hop water now, but I actually have some reason to try it, to open up my wallet and trust what I'm hearing so that when I spend these dollars, when I wait the couple of days for that shipping to come to me, I'm not going to be disappointed. It's going to live up to those expectations. So it's not only this challenge of having to convince people to do it, but in a challenger mindset with a smaller budget, you have to just be a lot more convincing and compelling and honestly fulfilling of the promise so that you're not just getting them to try you one time, but once they try you, now, I imagine you need that lifetime value factor and that whole turning it into a customer and hopefully the word of mouth and the old traditional brand things that have always existed and now seem to be coming back, which probably should have never left.
You just said something that is so important, which obviously this day and age, there are new tools for every single thing you might want to do in the marketing space, in e-commerce space. I mean, you go to the Shopify marketplace for a different app. I mean, you can find an app for anything. But I think sometimes like we're so deep in the forest, all we're seeing are the trees. And like we step back, at the end of the day, it still goes back to the 4 Ps of marketing. And sometimes I think we just need to simplify and recognize that like, hey, look, do we have a great product? Are we priced? Are we in the right places? And are we promoting it the correct way? And I think, obviously what you're talking about is the 4th P, the promotional side. And to your point, social proof is always going to be the best method to get people to buy into your product. People don't trust brands. I mean, we're trying to sell you a product, right? We're going to tell you anything that we can, obviously within reason. We're not going to lie or be, super deceitful, but a consumer is, they see an ad and they're just like, well, yeah, of course you say you're the best. Everyone thinks they're the best.
No
But
one's
the social,
advertising they're mediocre.
exactly. And so, like, I think when we get to the social proof side, obviously that's become such a huge thing with like UGC. Now, UGC, you could argue, has gone too far, and half of the UGC, probably more than half of the UGC out there, is paid for and looks fake and looks, like the person probably never even tried the product before they received that sample. But at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. We could build the best advertising in the world in-house or using an agency or something like that and be a beautiful commercial. But if you don't have that community, because when a consumer these days has more tools than ever, just like we have more tools than ever. So they see an ad and they're like, that's an interesting product. I am looking to cut down maybe a little bit on my drinking, or, I love the taste of beer, but I don't want to have a beer at 10 in the morning when I'm on a podcast. So I want to have a hop water. So they see that ad and they're like, that looks like a really cool product. What are they going to do? They're going to either go to the website and check maybe some reviews. They're going to go to Instagram or Facebook and say like, okay, how many followers do these guys have? What are people saying about this product? Maybe they'll just Google us, and see like what's out there. What's the rating? What are the stars? And that's why, like, even on Amazon, they say like, you got to get to at least 50 to 100 reviews, because if you don't have that social proof, I know personally as a consumer, if I see a product that looks great and is priced maybe too good to be true, and it only has 3 reviews, probably not buying it, because that's probably a product that just changed names and changed its listing because it was getting a ton of negative reviews. So community building, I think, is so important, and something that like I know we at HOPWTR want to continue to build upon, because I'll tell you, like, this non-alcoholic space is tapped into something that people love. Mountain biking is huge. Hiking is huge. All these sports where beer has played a role, but maybe you don't want to have a beer when you're about to go down like a steep slope on a mountain bike.
We're
So
not doing
like
the beer mile. We're doing the non-alcoholic beer mile.
yeah, maybe the non-alcoholic beer mile is next. I ran a half marathon earlier this year. I would have had hop water before the race. But I mean, so people who like hop water love hop water. And so like we're doing exactly that. Like, how do we tap into this community to really tell the stories of how people are using this product? Because they love it. What are the methods to use that? But to your point, the story has not changed. It's still telling the story about a brand and why you should believe in it. It's just the methods have changed.
Speaking of methods, and you brought up Amazon. So Kelly and I vacillate around this with a lot of brands and products we work with, in terms of it's so easy to get your product on Amazon and get people to just add it to what they're shopping for on Amazon. Yet it's a margin killer for the brand side. And then where's the loyalty? Is it on Amazon? Is it to the brand? And so many times we've been asked by D2C brands that were sort of native D2C startup brands, which, by the way, the last guest we had on our show also used Dr. Squatch as the example of this great brand. So I guess they're the new Dollar Shave Club.
They must be doing something right.
And I use the product and I love it. And it is expensive, but that's okay. It's better for my arm. Okay. So we've been asked so many times by these native D2C brands, like, hey, how do we get off the Amazon sort of crack that is everybody's buying our product there, but the margins kill us or whatever. So you've no doubt had to face this challenge in your past roles and have to face it in this role. Can you talk about that? How are you tackling that?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to say anything that you guys probably haven't heard or talked about before. Amazon is where 70% of product searches start now. It is what it is. I mean, I hate to say it. And look, at the end of the day, I mean, even going back to what I said at the beginning, it's like, we have to be realistic about how consumers are shopping these days. And as a brand, our job is to get cans in hands. Obviously, internally, we need that to be profitable. We need it to scale appropriately. But we have to recognize that people are shopping on Amazon, and that's not going to change anytime in the near future. So how do we build the right model on Amazon? How do we make sure that what we're doing there is profitable and driving profitable growth? And obviously, that's deep dive in the P&L, something that we don't need to get into today because that would just be very, very boring. But obviously, it's not always easy for all brands to find that profitability. I will tell you, coming from chocolate brands, it was very hard to be profitable on Amazon because, shipping chocolate is certainly not easy. HOPWTR has its own challenges because our cans weigh a lot, when you put a 12-pack or a 36-pack together. But I think we found a way to do it. Now recognizing direct-to-consumer is a more profitable and a place that we can do a better job of storytelling and developing that loyalty. So I think the reality is I don't want to be defeatist, but there's not really a ton that can be done necessarily, at least in my mind, about people shopping Amazon. And in fact, it's a great brand introducer because that's where people are shopping. But I think, again, it goes back to like, how do we build this brand so strong that people can't help but want to visit the website to learn more about it? And then how do you create meaningful added value to the consumer experience on the website? I've seen people do something as simple as you get stickers, like brand stickers with every order. It
Yeah.
sounds so dumb, but I will tell you as a consumer, I love getting stickers. I pop it on the back of my laptop or my thermos or whatever. And it's little things like that. Obviously, those are just added values. But again, if people truly love your brand, and Kelly, to your point about like building that community, like I am a hop water enthusiast. I want everything that this brand is willing to give me. We offer merch on the website. We don't sell merch on Amazon. And if you sign up for a subscription, you get like a hop water beanie on your second order. And we're giving you additional value on your sixth order and all this kind of stuff. So like there are ways to do it. But for me, I just think that Amazon is a tool in the toolkit and it's where people are. One of my old bosses at Mars used to say, fish where the fish are. And unfortunately, the fish are on Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah. Let your consumers buy your product where they want to buy it. But the challenge, the economic challenge with that can be pretty significant. And that's what a lot of times Kelly and I have been asked that question is, how do we move? If we could move some percentage, a small percentage, 10% of purchases on Amazon to the .com, the financial impact of the P&L would be significant. And when you've got brands that are trying to create that sort of impact, Amazon, love it or hate it, it's there. It creates a lot of traction, but it's also, God, it's shocking how much of your revenue can come out of that one channel. Kelly, I know you have something to add here.
Yeah. I think this all comes kind of full circle into where my head goes, especially around the CPG space. Is Stu, you said something earlier that really struck me, and I think it's a challenge that we often have to guide through or point through with a lot of our clients is, I think a lot of times brand owners can get very close to their own product and their own process and really believe in that perspective of I have a great product and I have all these reasons to believe that sometimes they get lost a little bit in almost stress testing their own marketing, their own user journey, and really putting themselves in the shoes and saying, well, how would I go about discovering and buying? Or what would the hurdle, like, would I follow what I'm expecting the people I'm marketing to follow? Or is that not a clunky experience? And this is where a lot of times we have to accept, Amazon is a discovery place. And then we go into the idea, and you mentioned this heavily with the stickers and the beanies and things, is where can you create value exchange and really accepting that you aren't asking a consumer if they move off of Amazon and go direct to you, you're asking them to give up things. You're asking them to give up convenience. You're asking them to give up the one-click add to my cart where I'm buying other things. And that is going to take them more time. Instead of adding this product to a cart where they can conveniently do a single purchase, you're asking them to do it you're already going to do on Amazon, but then leave there, go to my site, put in new credit card information. This is all time and energy that you are extracting out of your consumer. And so this is where we talk to brands is, where do you create that benefit for being willing to do that? Where do you create that value add? Where do you create that exchange? And then also using Amazon from a nurturing component. Maybe you do use it and take that financial hit, that margin hit on the discovery process. But now how do you slowly and methodically migrate them into a direct customer where now, okay, you've tried me, you've done the convenience, but now you're bought in. So how do I bring you into my ecosystem because you're sold on the idea? It's not a hypothetical, maybe I like this before I ask you to be a loyal customer kind of component. So I think it does kind of come full circle on being strategic in how you use these vehicles. And again, what I often feel like gets lost from the marketer side is that realization that I am asking consumers for value. I'm asking for time. I'm asking for money. I'm asking for belief and trust and trial and all these things. And if I'm going to ask that, I have to really critically think about what am I offering? What am I giving in order to receive versus just I'm going to put an ad and they're going to believe and buy. So I think the way that you talk about it and inherently accept that, I think it's refreshing to see that it's not just I have a great product, give me money for it. But no, like I'm asking you to believe in me and buy. And so I need to give you stickers and reasons to believe and make it fun and make it engaging and give you a value other than just my good product.
I think that's so well said. One of my favorite phrases when we talk about our brand and our customer journey is the curse of knowledge, which is exactly what you were talking about of like the team has to sometimes step back and understand where's the consumer at? Because we know so much about our product. We know all the details about it and we love it, but we can't make that same assumption and assume that the consumer is going to give us as much time as we're giving ourselves. We see our own ads a million times a day because we're building them, we're making them, we're living them, we're getting retargeted because we're always on our website. These people are not. And the most valuable asset almost everybody has these days is time. I know my son is in travel baseball and I work way too many hours a day. And the amount of time that I have to actually just sit and do very little or think or buy something. So you're asking the consumer to get off of Amazon and go spend more time plugging in new credit card information, trusting this website, explore. And so 100% just understanding that consumer journey and how do we, if we're asking them to spend more time with us, we better damn well make it worth it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap up here so you can finish your hop water and get back to work.
Yes.
Early morning podcast call. Great conversation. I wish we could talk for another 2 hours. One of the questions that Kelly and I scratch our head about all the time, and it is what we are tasked with in our current line of service and work, is paid media. And what we like to understand from people in your position who are on the brand and the marketing side is, what are the realistic expectations that you have when you invest in paid media? And you seem to have a little bit more of a realistic picture than maybe others, but I'd love to know if you can wrap up on just what are the expectations of paid media. Kelly and I don't believe, we often say it's not something, we can't make people buy something. A great ad, we don't believe is necessarily the only thing that's going to make someone buy something. It's going to play a role in that journey of decision-making and influence and behavior, but it's probably not the one and only thing that's going to make somebody buy something, unless you yourself, of course, write the greatest headline in the world, and that makes people buy stuff, and that'll be your challenge. But anyway, what are your expectations of paid media in terms of all of this?
Oh, man. I mean, that's our daily deep dive at this point, is like, how do we analyze our channels? How do we analyze our creative? How do we analyze our targeting? And then how do we analyze attribution and where we're sending people to? Because back to earlier in the conversation, we've got D2C, we've got digital marketplaces like Amazon and Walmart, and then we've got our physical brick and mortar retail. Again, it's just looking at it holistically and recognizing that maybe not every ad and that people click from Meta or Google and land on the website are necessarily going to make the purchase right then. And they're not necessarily ever going to make necessarily the purchase on digital. They may just learn a little bit more about the brand. And hopefully when they walk past the product in Walmart or Bevmo or Sprouts, they're going to say, oh, I remember that. I saw a video about this product. So I think the biggest challenge these days is obviously, again, you got to get the channel mix and you've got to have great creative and great targeting. But then it's attribution. Like, how do we track and understand if this is successful? I mean, I go back to like pre-digital media. I forget if it was like Ogilvy or someone said it where they were like, I know 50% of my advertising is working. I just don't know which 50%. And I almost feel like we're back to that again because there's so much. If you go into Meta's attribution, of course, they're going to give more attribution to themselves. And you go to Google's, and of course, they're going to give more attribution to themselves. And it's like, well, how much of this is duplication? And what about the offline sales? And how are we tracking this? And it's a constant battle. There's a ton of tools out there that I know do it. And I haven't found necessarily any that I particularly love. But I think that this is the journey that we're all on, is what's the best method? And at the end of the day, the best method is our sales going up proportionally with ad spend. I mean, I hate to say it. I'm sure that there's better tools out there to understand, but that's where I'm at.
I love that. I think it really highlights something that we push through, which is, yeah, for the longest time, digital was, everyone wanted that direct attribution, that direct line of sight, that this led to that. And again, I think when you look at the bigger picture, especially in a fragmented environment with different sales channels, a lot of it is correlation. And I think that's a lot of what Todd and I end up talking about, is especially with the engagement, but even with an internal team, I think it's that relationship that exists, which is developing that trust. And oftentimes what I talk about with my teams is building that case of why to believe. So maybe I am reaching the exact right audience, the person that we want to, and maybe it is high visibility and maybe they are exposed to it, but maybe they don't want to click on it, or maybe it's in a non-clickable environment, or maybe it's top of mind and maybe that led to the search, or maybe they would have never done the search that got the last touch attribution if they didn't see the video ad a week before that. How do you know that? But I think what it comes down to is being able to articulate why we are investing the way that we are, why we are making the decisions, why we feel like it's the right choices, and laying that out and having that relationship. And I think that's really important because it's so easy to commoditize the purchasing of media, to just say, buy more Meta ads, buy more Google ads. The reps are telling me there's plenty of room. The reps are telling me there's ROI on it. They want me to spend more. And if you're just breaking it down to more impressions or more click-throughs or more last touch attribution, I feel like you lose that marketing engine, which is, how are we segmenting our audiences? How do we believe we're entering the market? And I think that's where that relationship comes in, is, are you able to have those conversations with the marketing team that can answer really good questions of, why did you choose that? Why did you believe that that's the right thing? What did you not do that you could have? And because you could only afford to do one of two things, and being able to articulate that, I think, becomes that overall feeling that you're going in the right direction, that you're using the right logic test, and that you believe that ultimately, when I see a positive outcome correlated to that investment, yes, it's not direct. There, you could poke holes in it. Yeah. You understand the brand and you're doing it for a reason. And it's not as simple to understand as, I put in this ad, they clicked on it, they bought it. It'd be wonderful if everything worked that way. Who buys that way, especially an offline product? Who clicks on an ad and immediately buys? It's such an unusual experience to expect that to be the measurement of success. That, yeah, it's good to hear that you accept that reality, I think.
Yeah.
For better or worse, you accept that reality.
For better, exactly.
Probably.
It is. Anyway, I mean, I could go on all day about this. The last thing that I'll say is, if you don't follow Preston Rutherford, the founder of Chubby's, on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend it. The guy has given, I think, a masterclass over the last few months in not always just staring down your efficiency metrics in Meta and Google and things like that, which I think, Kelly, is exactly what you were alluding to. It's like, a ROAS is great, a strong CPA is great, but none of that matters if it isn't driving incrementality. And I think that we've all fallen into the trap of, man, look at this ROAS. And then the question is, well, but why isn't the business growing? The ROAS is great. So I highly recommend that. The guy, learned a lot at Chubby's, and I think finally he understood. It's, at the end of the day, efficiency metrics are great, but we're all trying to build brands. And if you build a brand with a good creative funnel, a good business proposition, and good targeting methodology, that's how you're going to grow your business the best way.
So I'm going to add 2 marketing P's there. So patience and practicality. If we could throw those in there, yes. I think it'll go really well. So
the 6 P's.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, final wrap. I'm going to put you on the spot. This is sort of a human experiment to either prove or disprove that marketing and advertising works. Can you recall the last great ad that you saw?
Oh, man.
That's the reaction of everyone, which tells all of us marketers we're not doing a very good job.
It's true. I think my brain is bombarded with UGC and these creators who I love. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus here, but I think a lot of brands have gotten away from great advertising. I'll mention the Squatty Potty. I think that I don't know if you guys remember those ads, the unicorn pooping ice cream into those ads. I think very similar again to like the Dr. Squatch and a lot of the things that these agencies are doing in the D2C space that grab attention quickly, but in a way that makes sense, right? It's not just shock value for shock value's sake. It grabs your attention, creates a problem, solves it, entertaining, educational. I think those are the ads that really do it. So I think Squatty Potty and Dr. Squatch have done really a phenomenal job, and be on the lookout for some great HOPWTR stuff soon.
Awesome. Well, since you're newly into the HOPWTR journey, I would love to get you back on here in 6 months or 9 months, or maybe at the beginning of the year, and just see how things are going. So we're going to ask you to come back. We'll all toast to HOPWTR on that show and see where things are at for you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's good to catch up with you, and good luck.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. This has been a blast.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Contrary to Popular Opinion, where we challenge you to think independently, push the limits, and take uncommon action so you can achieve game-changing results in your business and your life. To stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to click the follow or subscribe button now. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.